Okay, we're going to call to order the meeting of the Committee of Bar Examiners for Friday, April 26, 2019. Kim, would you please take the roll?
Sure. Esther Lynn. Here. Anjali Agaptep. James Bolton. Robert Brody. Here. Alex Chen. James Efting. Judy Gillespie. Karim Gongora.
Present.
Dolores Heisinger. Here. Michael Iseri. Here. Larry Kaplan. Here. Paul Kramer. Here. Alex Lawrence. Bethany Pick. Here. Vince Reyes.
Here.
Shelly Toriaba. Here. David Torres. Patricia Villalobos. Here.
And I'm here. Jim Fox is the chair. The next item on the agenda is a call for public comment. Is there any member of the audience or participating by telephone? Yes, Dean.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Chairman Fox. Just briefly, my name is Brian Purcell. I'm the Dean at Empire College School of Law as of last August. The mic. As a former litigator, I shouldn't need it, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's the live feed.
It's the webcast.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Brian Purtill. I just wanted to briefly introduce myself and say hello. I have seen some of you already. I was here a couple times last year as a member of the CS Bars. I'm going to try to make as many of this committee's meetings as I can so I can continue my journey to try to figure out just what our legal education is like from soup to nuts, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here. So, and also thank you for the coffee. So just so you know who's hanging out here every so often, that's who I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Trent. Are there any other public comments? Either, obviously not, there's no other public member in the audience. Anybody on the telephone? Hearing none, we will move on to the next item, which is the designation of representatives for the admission ceremony for successful February 2019 bar exam applicants.
Sure. So we are seeking volunteers at each of our locations. And Dr. Bolton has already graciously offered to attend the session in Pasadena. So at the moment, we've added the schedule to this agenda item. We are seeking someone in Fresno, Oakland, Orange County, Riverside, Sacramento, San Diego, and in Ventura. And just to remind everybody, this is a swearing-in ceremony for the February 2019 successful bar examinees. This is a very positive session. You know, this is where we get to welcome new bar members, and admissions has a presence at that ceremony at every session. So, do we have any volunteers right now? Okay.
Orange County.
Orange County. Okay, so we have Esther at Orange County.
Want to do a team?
All right. Kareem?
Volunteer myself at Riverside, but then also Judith, but she can't be in today.
Okay. All right. Anybody?
Michael?
Oakland? Vince? Okay, thank you so much.
Good. Michael?
Michael? Okay, so you could follow up and let us know. Wonderful, thank you. And anyone else?
Nobody else is like Sacramento.
Okay.
Good.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
All right, so we have San Diego, Ventura, or Fresno. Okay.
What's the date of the Ventura?
The Ventura date is June 4th. So these are all happening either June 4th, June 5th, or June 6th. Okay. All right. So if anybody changes their mind or becomes available, feel free to reach out to us. The other thing is we also can provide speaking parts and points and highlights if it's needed. So thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the March 22nd Committee of Bar Examiners meeting. The minutes have been prepared and are submitted as part of your packet. Are there any corrections, additions? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Moving on to the report from the Director, Committee of Bar Examiners is the State Bar Annual Report, attachment 0-102.
All right.
Amy.
Thank you. Good morning. So every year, the Office of Admissions creates an annual report, and it's usually compiled and presented after at the first meeting of the new year. And unfortunately, we weren't able to validate that data. We were in the transition from the from AS400 to the AIMS system, but it's here. And there's a few things I want to highlight in that report that's been attached. I want to highlight, and I've done this when we've talked about the key statistical indicators, and that is the overall decline in some areas in terms of our numbers. So if you look in terms of the number of applicants that were placed on the motion, comparing 2018 to 2017, it's about a 15.3% decrease when you compare those two numbers. So we have less in 2018. And we also have a decline in the number of first-year law exam applicants as well as bar exam applicants. There is also a decline in the number of TA appeals that are coming to the committee. Most of them have been handled by staff, as well as the number of, there's a decrease in the number of investigative reports reviewed by the committee. The areas where there has been an increase includes the number of the moral character applications. That is something that I typically report on in the key statistical indicators, as well as you can see, the number of law school reports that happened in calendar year 2018 compared to 2017. So with that, I just want everybody to recognize everyone for their contributions. There was a lot of material covered in 2018, and that is what's reflected in this report. So thank you, and thank this committee for your contribution to that.
Amy, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Does that report capture how many people go through the apprentice type program that we have?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Do you know where that information would be accessible?
We can count that. So, and one thing about that, so this is, you're referring to the Law Office Study Program that's referred to as Apprenticeship Program.
Yeah.
That is, what we have is the numbers that, of filings, so how many people are enrolling, as well as how many are currently in the program itself. And we can provide those probably at the next meeting. And so it's a 4-year program, so it'll be 2 separate statistics. That is how many have enrolled in this calendar year and how many have are continuing on the program. We will add those to the next meeting.
Okay, I appreciate that. It got a bit of publicity this past month, and our executive director wrote an amazing op-ed about it. And so I just want to promote that as much as possible, because it is a lane, but from my understanding, it's not utilized to the level that it probably can be if it was more publicized.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. The next item is the report on key statistical indicators for February and March of 2019.
All right.
Amy?
Thank you, Jim. So as I noted earlier, the annual report and the key statistical indicators represent the same trends as I discussed earlier. Again, a decrease in the number of applicants placed on the motion and a decrease in the number of applicants for the first year exam and for the general bar exam. The other thing is that the report reflects a decrease in the number of moral character determinations in PTLS, that's our practical training of law students, and the Pro Hoc Vice, And this could be attributable to the fact that we have hard copy applications that are being manually entered. So this might shift by the next report because those are areas that I have highlighted in the past and that reflect in the admissions report that have experienced an increase. So just one thing that I want to highlight about that. But with that, are there any questions about the report, the key statistical indicators?
Okay. The next item, Natalie, would you like to update the committee, please, on the committee, the CS Bars and the Law School Council, which both convened this week, Monday and Tuesday?
Sure, thank you both. So first of all, thank you both to Esther and to Jim for welcoming those committees, helping to set them on their path as to the help that the committee needs this year, and Esther doing so with quite an incredible, powerful voice. I know that that both groups were very happy to hear from you. So the Law School Council has been reconstituted to focus specifically on ABA schools. It's currently chaired by Dean Susan Westerberg Prager from Southwestern Law School. The other members are Susan Bakshian from Loyola Law School, Michael Colatrella from McGeorge Law School, Hollis Colwyn from UC Davis, Jennifer Nukin from UCLA, Donald Scotton from USC Gould School of Law, and Don Smythe from Cal Western School of Law. We had nearly full participation except for one student emergency, and we had deans from around the state, which was terrific. It was a very good opportunity to talk about the things going on inside the bar, to get some excellent feedback and share some excellent tips regarding things going on, specifically, for example, in the area of our new Ames computer system. And the body also gave us some very good suggestions to help with the upcoming law school assembly that will take place here in San Francisco on May 7th and repeated again in Los Angeles on May 8th. The law school assembly itself has undergone a change, and it now has a new retreat-style format that we think will more heavily engage the law schools, help to explain what the State Bar is doing, to involve those law schools in the various studies and initiatives, but also to learn from them how we can best provide what they need. They also selected their representative that they will recommend to you for the Moral Character Working Group, and Tara Clark will be talking about that in a short while after I finish here. On Tuesday, the CS Bars met, and that is the group that previously had representatives from the accredited schools, now has formal representation from the registered schools as well. That body is chaired by Jackie Gardina of the Santa Barbara and Ventura Colleges of Law, and other members are Dean Barbieri from John F. Kennedy School of Law, accredited school, Greg Brandis, St. Francis School of Law, registered school, Kareem Gongora from our own Committee of Bar Examiners, Martin Pritikin, Concord Law School, registered school, and Brian Pertil, also visiting us here today, from Empire School of Law, accredited school. They covered some of the same topics, but also some other specific issues that are germane to those law schools. And in particular, we're working with them to collect a more expanded demographic information to match the information that we can get for ABA law schools, to help look at not only the diversity of the entrance of law students, but how they progress through law school and what the State Bar can do to improve retention across all classes of students. So I believe it was a very good, very easy, very collegial meeting. We had very good attendance at both, and we're very happy to get those started.
Any questions to Natalie? Which brings us to the next item, and you touched upon it briefly, the agenda for the law school assembly meeting. I know at the CS Bars meeting, they were very appreciative of the agenda that's been put together because it really will provide a lot of relevant material for the law schools. They seem very pleased with it. So, do you have anything else you'd like to add to?
Not at this time, but Brian, as a member of the CS Bars, might have a comment that he might like to share.
No, not really. I mean, I feel like what you said is correct. I mean, we had a good sense of what the agenda is going to be. I plan to be there May 7th, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really great assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, the next item is the schedule for the June 21st meeting in Los Angeles.
So as you can see, on June 21st, we'll be meeting in Los Angeles, and it is a one-day meeting. Kim will be responsible for making room reservations. So if you need a room, please let her know.
And the meeting will be starting at 9 o'clock, so those of us from Northern California will have to go down on Thursday evening.
So are you saying we have to ask then, as opposed to Kim will just automatically make the reservation for us? Okay. And I understand, Amy, from a discussion we had, that we're going to have a lot of testing accommodations on that agenda.
Potentially, yes. As we get closer to the bar exam, that is the last in-person meeting. We will also have 2 subcommittee calls. So we'll have 3 more opportunities to review appeals before the July bar exam.
So we shouldn't expect it to go as quickly as the last meeting did necessarily then,
Yes.
Probably not.
for planning purposes. Thanks.
Any other questions regarding the schedule for the meeting? If not, updates on pending Office of Admissions and State Bar activities. Amy, admissions rules revision?
Yes. I wanted to give everybody a heads up on the status of the rules revision. As you recall, the board recommendations on the rules admissions went out for public comment. That closed on March 15th. The rules are going to be reported back to the board at the May meeting. And the board's adoption of those proposed changes would effectuate those rules as early as May. And so more to come on that.
Okay. And the Moral Character Working Group, a number of you had applied to serve on the Moral Character Working Group, and the following appointments have been made. Jim Efting, who's currently the chair of the Moral Character Committee, is going to be serving on that working group and will be chairing that group. Also, Larry Kaplan, a public member, is going to be serving on the committee, and Judge Torrealba are going to serve from the Committee of Bar Examiners. Also serving as designees from CS Bars and from the Law School Council, the ABA designee to the working group is Meredith D'Angelo, Assistant Dean of Student Affairs at the University of San Diego Law School. Accredited law schools, Patrick Piggott, the Dean of Humphreys University, Trevon School of Law in Stockton. And registered law schools, Dean Michael Clancy of Northwestern California School of Law in Sacramento. And then we also have a designee from Stanford Law School.
Yes, Deborah Muckamel.
I didn't get the name memorized yet. So those are the appointees to the Moral Character Working Group. So the next item is the attorney practice.
I think Tara wanted to
Oh, I'm sorry.
about the group's intent and
Oh, I'm
next
sorry,
steps.
yes.
Sorry.
Tara.
Good morning. So Amy had just asked that I give a brief overview and then the next step. So as a reminder, the working group was created as a recommendation of Appendix I for the State Bar to review the standards and guidelines that are used in connection with moral character determinations. As such, the working group is tasked with reviewing these standards and guidelines to provide more transparency into the evaluation process and promote consistency and uniformity in decision making. In conducting this high-level review of the process, the Moral Character Working Group will review facts such as rehabilitation and how it is considered in the context of current societal values and mitigating and aggravating factors. For the next steps, we'll be finalizing the agenda now that we have the appointed members and scheduling the first meeting. Initially, we were going to try to schedule the first meeting in May. However, I believe we're pushing it now to early June, as the newly hired moral character attorney will not start until May 20th. And we'd like to be a part of the process. So we look forward to starting this soon.
Okay.
I don't know, Amy, if you've updated the committee on the Umberg bill. I think we talked about it last time. This was the legislation that was introduced that would prohibit the bar from seeking any mental health records as part of the moral character process.
Yeah.
We had put forward amendments to modify that, or certainly to prevent an absolute ban on our seeking that information. Those amendments were accepted by the author. So we are able to continue to seek those records in very limited circumstances, but I think staff believes they're appropriate with respect to our current practices. So,
and just to note that we actually worked with the chair and the vice chair, as well as the chair of moral character, in developing those amendments that we submitted to the author. So thank you for your help in putting those together. We were very pleased that they accepted them.
Quick question, Chair. Do you know the bill number?
it's 244. 544. Or 544.
ABSB?
SB,
Okay.
Senator Umberg.
Umberg? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding that? Okay, the next item is a report from Robbie on the CAPA.
Just to recap, the bar is taking a closer look at the bar exam that we give and what it tests, and is it testing relevant things that go to minimum competence. And as part of that, sort of broad look at the bar, a study was commissioned that will ask attorneys, in particular new attorneys, what they do and what tasks they perform. And I think it's going to be a very interesting look at what people in this state do. I am representing the CBE on that committee. I see one of our law school deans whose president is also there. Leah and Amy have also been attending those meetings. It's very interesting to work with a vendor to prepare a survey that is very comprehensive. Every member of the bar is going to be invited to participate in the survey. It is, I think it's not a 2 or 3 second thing. Those that are asked to complete the one-time survey will take about an hour of their time. Others are going to be asked to regularly report over a short period of time what they're doing. In exchange, and to encourage participation, the bar is developing continuing education, MCLE credit, for those who participate. I'm hoping all attorney members of the CBE will participate too. At this most recent meeting, which by coincidence was the day before yesterday, we were still working with our vendor on the content of the survey, which is first going to be beta tested to a small number of attorneys and then rolled out to a very large group, I think, this summer. So stay tuned. I think we're going to get some very interesting insights into what attorneys do in our state, and we'll see how we can use that data. Amy, did you?
Yeah, there are a couple of things I want to highlight too. So this is a job analysis that's being conducted. I think we mentioned it before in the context of the other studies that had happened in 2017 and 18. These are the standard setting study that looked at the CUT score, as well as the the other one is the content validation study. And so those used a job analysis that was a national one that was conducted by the National Conference of Bar Examiners in 2012. This is a California-specific effort. And so there are 4 components, and as Robbie's highlighted, the first has been accomplished, and that is establishing the knowledge domains that will be used in the survey. The next are 2 separate surveys that are going to be sent out, as he's described. One is a traditional survey that's a regular format that somebody will fill out, and it's somewhat of a lengthy survey. The second is the one that we've talked about here in the past, and that is that ESM, the experimental survey methodology that is going to use a random moment to capture what the knowledge, abilities, and skills required for the task that attorneys are going to respond to. And the thing that I want to point out is that we also have the National Conference of Bar Examiners is also conducting a job analysis at the same time. We're coordinating with them to ensure that California is represented well in the California study as well as nationally. So there's a great deal of coordination that's happening behind the scenes. And also, as Robbie's pointed out, we are the group that is working on the CAPA right now, the working group that includes deans as well as experts in some of these areas. They are alpha testing those instruments and those domains before they get launched. So I just wanted to highlight that. But does anybody have any questions about the CAPA or the next steps?
Yeah, so I'm noticing we're doing a lot of research and studies in the forthcoming months. Is the idea that we're changing our objectives or that we're looking at evolving the bar? Or is this just more to make us more effective or more sound? I mean, I'm sure that's what the ideal is, but I'm working to see if we're going to see different type of questions in the test, different type of verbiage, or things of that sort to kind of meet that professional expectation.
So when in 2017, when there was a lot of press and concerns about the decline in bar exam performance, the Chief Justice directed the State Bar to look at factors that might be contributing to that. That's why we had the various exams, the various studies that took place. So this is the next step to continue that investigation. And so what we're hoping to gather from this, the performance analysis, is going to help us gauge the minimum competence that's required for that exam, and everything is on the table related to that. That is, what we're hoping to gather is information that will help address whether the exam format has to change, whether the exam topic areas. We're hoping to learn more, get more information that will feed what that minimum competence is to ensure that we're testing that appropriately.
I appreciate that. I was in one of the meetings where we were talking about mortgages, and my generation isn't as familiar with mortgages because we haven't had that much of an access, right? So it's interesting to see what this next wave of applicants will perceive in that type of law, right? Or if they're studying that law. So I'm just interested to see how it's going to evolve. Just going to be mindful of it. But I appreciate the work that's being done because it's ultimately going to provide a lot of more access and inclusion in legal careers, as it's going to provide more resources and more data, right? So we're able to identify what the needs are and where they need to be allocated. So do you know if this study will be regional, or when you're parsing out the data, are you doing it from a statewide comprehensive perspective, or are you breaking it down per region or per area, or however you divide up the state? I'm not too familiar.
Well, the studies conducted across the state. So for the California-based one, and obviously the national one is across all states. Mm-hmm. But in terms of how the data will be parsed, I think that that is something that the methodologists will deal with, because there's also data that's going to look at topic areas as well as law areas that people are practicing into. So there's a lot of ways that the data could be.
I would love if it would be parsed per region, just so I could identify what the needs are. I'm sure other committee members would find it useful. I'm sure there's different disparities, right, in Northern versus Southern California.
Oh, yeah. And so, Kareem, I think you're talking about another study, too. So we're also conducting a justice gap study. Perhaps that's what you're...
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 being done, so I'm trying to...
Yeah, let me just... So for the practice analysis study, what we're looking at is the content areas, so subject matter areas and skills that new attorneys need to know and have. So that's that study. And it does tie ultimately directly to the bar exam. So we learned through the process we went through over the last couple of years to do the studies, the other studies of the bar exam that Amy referenced, that best practices in licensing does suggest that you need to do practice analysis studies every 10 years. Well, we've never done one in California. So we've been administering the bar exam for a long time. We've never done a practice analysis upon which our licensing exam would be built. So we're remedying that now. It could, in fact, the results could suggest that we need a very different exam. And I had a really interesting conversation with the representative on our working group from the NCBE at the meeting earlier this week. And one of the things that was really interesting is out of their 2012 job analysis, the number one kind of thing needed was legal research skills, more than any content area knowledge. But the difficulty lays in how do you create a standardized testing modality for legal research. So even though the job analysis says this is a really important skill, how do we really test for it, right? Because we don't allow people to go out into the web and go on LexisNexis during the bar exam. So let's say that we have our survey results and they say, well, you need all these skills are really important. Client relationship, for example. How are you going to test for that? So once we have the results of this practice analysis, they'll come back to the committee and we'll say, well, what are we going to do now? If they suggest, in fact, a very different complement of, or a very different mix of skills versus content knowledge is appropriate or needed. So that's the practice analysis. It is statewide. We will have the ability to look to see if there are, in fact, geographic differences, but those geographic differences won't tell you about need. It would just tell you, are attorneys in certain regions, is there a different set of skills and abilities and content knowledge that they need to have? Presumably, you wouldn't find regional differences, but we don't know. And then, as Amy mentioned, the Justice Gap Study, that's happening under our Office of Access and Inclusion. That's where we're looking at what is the need for legal services in California. And that will very much have a regional focus with a hyper focus on rural legal needs, because we understand there are justice deserts in this state. So
I appreciate it. I know they kind of had similar names and background, but it's a lot, and I appreciate it all because it's going to give us information that, as you're saying, we've never had before. So it's going to help us be a lot more effective. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Okay, the next item is other. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't see.
I was just curious about the expected timeline about once you receive the data and results, when do you think any action will take place?
As a result of the CAPA study?
Yes.
The CAPA study is designed to be complete by the end of this year. And in terms of recommendations, imagine they'll sprout by next year, by 2020.
And the justice one? I'm sorry. I remember the dates on that one.
The Justice Gap Study will also, phase 1 will be completed this year. We are thinking there will be an additional phase as we try to reach non-English, non-Spanish speaking California populations. We've got English and Spanish speaking populations in phase 1. But if we look to the other 4 top languages spoken in California, those are not addressed in phase 1. So that would be phase 2 next year.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the next item is other recent developments. Tammy, you want to talk about the online proctor?
Good morning, everyone. As many of you will recall, a few months back, we had brought to the committee the option of pursuing online proctoring. The reason for this was over the past several years, administering the California bar exam has presented some various challenges, with one of those being proctor recruitment, specifically hiring a sufficient number of proctors that can not only be proficient at the job, but are able to be trained and do the job. Historically, the California State Bar has maintained a steady proctor pool to draw from for each exam administration. Over the years, that proctor pool has reduced in size due to a variety of reasons, including the fact that many proctors have been working with the State Bar for a long time and are aging out, as well as the reduction in the number of people looking for seasonal work assignments. When proctors are not available, the State Bar uses personnel from temp agencies, which increases costs, is resource intensive, and is less efficient for the administration of the bar exam. Given the challenges in providing sufficient quality proctors to ensure an effective administration of the examination, the option of online proctoring has been explored as one method that might contribute to the improvement in quality of the bar exam administration. Online proctoring increases the quality of proctoring as it uses both a behind-the-scenes proctor staffed by the online proctor company and artificial intelligence to detect cheating or erratic behavior. Online proctoring can accommodate multiple applicants per online proctor while utilizing artificial intelligence to monitor eye and body movement and reports any findings back to the live human proctor. It has the capacity to allow the online proctor to communicate directly with an applicant as well as with the on-site staff. Although there would still be proctors on-site at the test center, it would require far fewer proctors than our current proctor pool. Vendors are currently being researched to verify the best company to meet our needs, and most importantly, online proctoring will also require approval by the National Conference of Bar Examiners. In June, online proctoring will be tested at 2 test centers during the first-year law students examination. This will provide an opportunity to see how it works and to be better prepared for implementation for online proctoring during the administration of the July 2019 California Bar Exam.
I just wanted to add that in light, the recent college admissions scandal that's been very newsy lately, 2 main components of the cheating involved applicants with testing accommodations and proctors. So the going to this new method eliminates, I think, some of the proctor concerns that we might have, because I think most of you probably know that the proctors were on the take and assisting students or changing students' answers for the SAT and ACT. So I think that means no standardized test is immune from the specter of cheating. This, as I understand it, the monitoring of the applicants is done either in India or in the Philippines. It's a vendor that uses a review center outside of the United States. So there's certainly less of an opportunity for that issue, and it'll be fewer proctors per session. So I'm very interested to see how and I can't remember, Tammy, are we testing accommodated test takers or general test takers?
We're actually going to do both. We'll do one standard test center for the June 1st year, and we'll do a testing accommodation as well.
So I think it will be interesting to see. So thank you.
And Robbie, I want to respond to some of the things you've raised in terms of also as a discussion item that was raised at the last meeting, and that is what is admissions doing in terms of approaches that we're taking to ensure that that same kind of fraudulent behavior doesn't exist and it doesn't happen for the bar exam. And there are 2 things. One is that you mentioned the proctor is one of the potential areas that could be manipulated. And for us, for the bar exam, that's not feasible given that our proctor assignments happen very soon, close to the date. So proctor doesn't know in advance where they're going to be scheduled. But also, you're highlighting the fact that online proctoring will also help reduce the chances of any of that happening. But the other part, too, is our TA process. Lisa, as she'll point out later in her examination, the goals for that examinations group, we are going to advance that presentation on the testing accommodation request process so that everybody's clear as to how those requests are made and what gets vetted, what we look at as the review process and what comes to the committee, as well as opening ourselves up for any suggestions or modifications that the committee thinks that we need to incorporate. So I just want to highlight that that is forthcoming and that we push that forward so that we can, we were originally scheduled to do that later in the year. We're going to do it at the next exam in anticipation of the questions that we received here.
Yes. Yeah, thanks.
Is there any other licensed professional group that has used online testing proctors?
Yes, there is.
What group is that?
Real estate and one more, sorry. And this is just with this specific vendor. We have not surveyed other online vendors, online proctoring vendors, but there are other licensing agencies that use online proctoring. But this vendor happens to do real estate, and I can't remember the second license.
Do real estate people have to do written essays?
I don't know the
I'm
content of their
familiar
exam.
with what they need to do.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the content of their exam.
Alex?
Piggyback on that very question, I understand there are at least 15 online proctoring companies out there. And it sounds like we haven't really studied the reliability of this company in comparison to other vendors. Is that right?
We are going to, we want to create a formal solicitation process or request for proposal. We're hoping to use this vendor that you met at the last, that did a presentation a couple of sessions ago, to learn also what we need to include in the request for proposal. So this is an experiment for us to learn what those needs might be. But based on the presentation and also on who their current customer pool is, I think we're confident that we can safely administer the exam.
It will not be a sole source with this vendor.
Right.
It's going to be a request for proposal.
That's a great idea. I assume every vendor provides different features and functions, and so, of course, that comes in different flavors as well. And as long as we're not stuck with the same vendor, that we have the flexibility to pursue other vendors depending on the reliability and credibility, I think that would give us a little more space to think about which one to choose for the final, candidate.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Just to answer the question regarding essays, I think it's this particular vendor works with a number of higher education institutions, including Ivy League schools, and these schools do have essay exams as part of the exams that are being online proctored. So maybe we don't know for the real estate board or the other licensing agencies that ProctorU works with, but I know even in my very preliminary conversation with them, they are able to proctor and monitor writing, typing, and filling in multiple choice. And they have experience doing that with a number of institutions.
Amy, can you remind us the name of the vendor?
ProctorU.
ProctorU, thank you.
Michael, you had a question? Okay. Yeah,
I guess my preference would be, if we went with this vendor, to really limit the amount of international online proctors and prefer to have it more
And that's what I wanted to
within the
highlight.
Northern American continent.
So Robbie noted that it's online proctors in other countries. This vendor uses proctors in the United States, online proctors in the United States. So they're mostly based in Alabama.
Because I had talked to him, and I thought that he said that they were using individuals out there at a call center type facility outside of the U.S. Maybe I misunderstood him. Okay. I mean, I want to highlight for all of us that in all of the cheating scandal cases, they all involved specially accommodated applicants. So I think as we start, that should be our focus. Applicants who are away from the general test centers are the ones that were successful in having their answers changed. So we just have to be on alert for that.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on, David is not here, and so Paul has agreed to handle this next item.
Okay, which is 200, the examinations goals.
I'm so sorry. I had some additional questions for the Law School Assembly. Are we able to address this at this time? I don't, before we don't jump back.
The Law School Assembly is on the agenda. I mean, you can address it.
Would this be an appropriate time? I just had some additional questions for Natalie. Would it be appropriate now, or?
Actually, why don't we wait until we finish the open?
Okay. I thought we were on to examinations, or where are we at now?
We're on examination.
The open item. So a minute ago we were talking about, Amy said they were pushing forward the orientation for us on how testing accommodations petitions are handled. That's number 8 on the list, an O200, and bringing that to June 2019. I'll just comment that I'm already a bit concerned that we're not going to have enough time on that agenda, and I'm going to have a lot to say about this. I'll just pass on that concern. Perhaps Anjali might have something to say as well, right?
Well, I guess I'm not certain how extensive a discussion we're going to have, but certainly, as you all know, I have my own particular thoughts about the testing accommodations, transparency.
Yeah, so I'm even thinking of, just to throw it out, that it might be useful for us to summarize. I mean, I can offer some thoughts. What we think we're not getting out of the reports in the current form. For instance, they tend to draw, and this will be an open session, right? Yeah.
The discussion on the TA process.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've discussed that. That we've made that determination yet. I think.
Yeah, I think the format I was originally thinking was some of it would be in open, and then to the extent there's things that need to be discussed in closed, there'd also be a closed section. Same topic.
Okay. So anyway, so I don't want to drag this on, but aside from that, I didn't see anything personally wrong or in need of correction for any of the other goals. Do we have any comments on the goals? If not, a motion to approve them?
Lisa?
Oh, Paul? I just wanted to also point out that we did tweak a little bit and moved number 9. Number 9, the report from the psychometrician, used to be May, but number 1, we don't have a May meeting, and number 2, that report was supposed to incorporate the results and statistical analysis from the February 2019 bar exam, and we don't even, have results released on that until mid-May. So we moved that to August.
Okay, and that's noted here.
I'll move to approve the goals.
Second? For a question, Angela?
So when the psychometrician comes, is that also when we're going to get re-educated on, the grading scenario?
I don't think the intent was that the psychometrician actually be here, but rather we would be talking about his report.
Yes. So I want to go back. So at our planning meeting, we talked about various presentations. We had talked about grading and scaling. So I think and I think we've had a grading presentation in 2018. So the idea was to do a presentation on weighting. Is that what you're referring to, Dr. Agatep? So we need to incorporate that in the calendar.
Okay.
And I'll move to approve the goals.
With that additional item?
With that additional item, of course.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's it.
Okay, thank you. And I would suggest that if you have specific comments regarding the testing accommodations that you think that staff could have an opportunity to review what your comments are, to include them in any written report for the June meeting. So that could expedite it if you raise your concerns with staff prior to the meeting so they can address them. But it may very well be helpful in expediting them.
I'll try to do that.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. My computer froze up. Okay, the next item is the operations and management. Rob?
Okay, I assume everybody has had an opportunity to look at our goals. Anybody have any comments ongoing? Danny, did you want to add anything? I think they're pretty consistent with where we're going this year.
The only thing I would want to point out is that we did add to the goals this time around for us to do the study on the change from the 3-day to the 2-day exam. So we'll be looking into that by August of this year to see how the 3 to 2-day exam impacted us or was better for us, or how it ended up playing out.
And I just want to highlight that is it was on the board strategic plan, that after 4 iterations of that exam, that we would do an analysis on both cost and the psychometric impact of shifting from a 3-day to a 2-day. So it appears both in examinations and in operations and management for that reason, because there's a fiscal component as well as a psychometric one.
Okay.
Just a quick question. I know it says updates on the Ames project. So that's something we'll see today, or is that not planned?
We didn't put it on there
Okay.
because since the last session that we had, there hasn't been that much of a change in Ames. I think if we have a new component, we'll bring that to the committee, but there have been no changes in our information management system.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the operations management goal? Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Next item is educational standards. Natalie and Kareem.
So I am standing in for Mr. Lawrence today. Natalie, do you typically lead with this, or is it my task?
We do it as a team.
Okay, let's try this out. So please be patient with me and Natalie. We're sorting through this. So we are on the subcommittee for educational standards. And item A is going to be the report on Cal Northern School of Law periodic inspection. Natalie, did you want to discuss that, or?
Sure. So we actually have 3 inspections on the agenda at this time that were conducted throughout the fall. And we would like to thank the team. I'm going to turn it back to Kareem in a moment because he was actually on this inspection team along with team leader Heather Georgiakis and Dean Jay Frickberg from the University of West Los Angeles. It is of special note for this particular investigation that this school is located in the Chico area and was inspected very near to the time of the Camp Fire. This school continued in operation during this period. It was of support to its students and it was of support to its community, and it turned in all regulatory materials on time without any sort of request for extension, and they were completed in full throughout this period. So they had exemplary performance during a very difficult time. So you might look at the mandatory and suggested recommendations on there. It's a very typical number of recommendations for any type of school. But to exhibit this performance during that time really is worthy of note. And I'd like to turn it to Kareem to share any of his experiences from his time at the school.
Definitely. Thank you. So this was my first inspection. For those who have been on inspections, it's very eye-opening. And I was really appreciative of the team and some of the information I've discovered about this community and the value that our registered schools provide for the local and regional community. They have people who were district attorneys from this school and people who have different type of legal careers. And so I think for me what was very helpful was just seeing that from that lens and then coming to this oversight committee and kind of having an understanding of what's being implemented at the ground level. So for me personally, it's given me a full wraparound, full circle of what we're doing here and the value we're creating inside people's communities. For this one in particular, it was an amazing experience. Heather Georgiakis and Dean Frickberg were so patient. You guys are familiar that I ask a lot of questions, and it's because I just want to know as much as possible. My mom will tell you something I was born with, but they were very patient, they were very diligent, and they were extremely informative of how the process operates. And I cannot thank them enough for the professionalism and the amount of time they took to make sure that we were engaged and we were present and that we were making sure we gave them a fair and just process throughout the entire duration of the meeting. So no negatives. Everything was a great experience, and I really appreciate the opportunity that was provided by the State Bar to go on this trip. Chico is a beautiful community, and so when I did hear about the fires, I was very concerned about the school. But to see that they still met their deadlines and obligations speaks measures about how much they care about the quality of instruction they're providing and the institution that they're developing and trying to maintain in this community. So they've addressed all the recommendations, and so...
Yes, so they provided a response in which they accepted all of the recommendations, both mandatory and suggested, and they have implemented quite a few of them already. The vast majority involved clarifications of their policies, as well as working with their faculty to provide additional support on exams for students to improve their learning as they progress through their careers. Therefore, I would recommend the staff recommendation is the motion provided, in which they would have their registration, their accreditation continued, and they would report in their annual report, which they'll receive in the summer and is due back to us in the fall.
All right, so we'll entertain a motion or any further questions?
Question.
Hey. All right.
Couple questions, sir. So I note that there are several mandatory actions that the school agreed to take to address some of the non-compliance issues. But if you look at the letter dated April 4th from Dean Brooks, she doesn't really specify the deadline or as to when some of these actions would be taken. Do we have any idea as to, I mean, I understand that the next inspection will be in fall 2013. I hope we're not going to wait until that long for them to take some of these actions. And so do we have any agreements, any specific dates from Dean Brooks as to when some of these actions will be taken?
Typically what happens is they go by the date provided by this committee, and in this case that would be the annual report, but we do not wait until the date of that report. Once the committee acts here with a staff recommendation proposal of the annual report, I begin to engage with them to be sure that they have a plan in place to meet that deadline. And so I would expect that all of these would be remedied by the return date of the annual report in November, if not significantly sooner.
And I would assume this, Dean Brooks is aware of that deadline by the next annual report that some of these actions will be taken?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? All right, seeing none. Yeah, there was a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Chan had a question. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the item carries. That brings us next to item B, which is a report on Santa Barbara and Ventura Colleges of Law periodic inspection. We need to thank Dolores Heisinger, Sally Paring, Dean Sandra Brooks, and Cal Northern School of Law for inviting us. Dolores, did you want to provide any commentary on your visit? Okay, could you put your microphone on, Dolores?
I had the opportunity to visit the Empire College as my first go around of doing visits, and that set me on the path to being a tremendous advocate for the Cal colleges. I'm very impressed with what they do. I admire what they're doing, and so I came away already a fan when I was asked to next visit the Santa Barbara and Ventura colleges. That only threw me over the top in my my fanaticism over these programs. I found the colleges that are one college of Ventura and Santa Barbara to be tremendously innovative, very, very student-centered. And of course that goes for Empire College too. Very student-centered. They know their goals. They're working constantly to accomplish those goals, and those goals revolve around the students. So they're very student-centered. I don't know how major colleges, the ABA-approved colleges operate. But if they operate in the same way, I would be also impressed but very surprised. I find these colleges to be very embedded in the community. They operate within, they're part of the community. They provide services to the community and draw advice and services to the colleges from the communities. Again, with the Santa Barbara Ventura College, the hybrid program that they have developed is an amazing, amazing thing to see. And I'm convinced that it will prove to be a first-class model for other colleges throughout the country. I could go on, but that
I
think that's
appreciate
enough.
that, definitely.
I think you get the gist.
Yeah, thank you so much. The recommendation at this time is to receive and file the periodic inspection report. If there's not any other further comments or questions, we would entertain that now. Or any questions of Dolores?
I'll move to adopt that.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. Any further clarity or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that item carries. That brings us to item C, which is the report on Monterey College of Law periodic inspection, which is item attachment 402. Natalie, did you want to provide anything on that? Or did you want me to think and then provide?
Sure, just briefly. So the Monterey College of Law inspection was the first multi-campus inspection to this level. So this involved a home campus inspection on the Seaside campus, as well as visiting the San Luis Obispo campuses, the Bakersfield campus, and the emerging Santa Cruz satellite, which will be, we'll say, promoted to a branch campus this fall, and will also house Monterey College of Law's hybrid JD program as well. So I want to in particular thank the two teams that coordinated together, led by the team leader of Greg Shin, to create this report and to keep it going very smoothly, and to thank from the committee Bethany Peak and Patricia Villalobos for participating, and I'll turn it back to you.
That's to me? Oh, that's cool. Thank you for the combination. So I want to give the opportunity for Bethany Peak or Patricia to provide some commentary on your visit.
No. There.
There you go.
I visited Monterey College of Law and interacted with all the staff and administrative, and also the professors that were there. They have a wonderful program. And then we had a get-together with the students, who every once in a while, because I've been to a visitation before, the students will grumble about something when the administration and the professors are not around. This was not that at all. There was not one negative comment about the school. They just loved it. The curriculum is good. There were just a couple of things that were so minor that had to be attended to, but other than that, it was a really wonderful experience.
And you visited the Monterey Seaside Hybrid Santa Cruz Satellite?
Yes, and
okay.
the Seaside one, the one in Santa Cruz is really small, and they just had one class. And the students there were in the upper division, I believe. And it was really, the facility was very nice. The facility in the other facility was an old Army facility that was taken over by the school, and their rent and stuff was just really minimal. So it made for like an easy thing not to pass on a higher tuition to the students. So it was very nice. But yes, both were great campuses.
Thank you so much. Bethany, did you want to provide some comments?
So I visited the Bakersfield campus and the San Luis Obispo campus, and I kind of got the easy job because Patricia's group did all the hard work at the main campus, and so I got the pleasure of just being schmoozed by Mitch for 2 days, which was nice. But both of those campuses, the Bakersfield and the San Luis Obispo, for my interactions with the students, as we know, like because of their location, it's hard for them to get outside to some of the other law schools. So there were at least maybe like 5 students that I talked to that had started law school elsewhere but had to drop out because they couldn't get to the campus. And none of them really wanted to leave the community that they were in. And so having those law schools there really was the best thing for them because they were able to get a quality legal education, not have to travel for 2 hours or whatever each way. And then they also got the interaction with people that they were going to practice with. So a lot of the students I met wanted to be like DAs or whatever, and they were having DAs teach their classes, and these are the people that are going to hire them. And I'm on Dolores' train. I won't keep going about how my views about the Cal schools have really changed by my first visit because this was my first one. But I really enjoyed it, and so thank you for giving me the opportunity to go and check out the schools.
Thank you so much for those comments. There are no material issues of noncompliance with any of the accredited law school rules or guidelines. So the team's not recommending any mandatory actions. There are some suggested actions. So if there's any questions or comments that's needed from members of the committee, we would entertain those questions or moments of clarity. Seeing none, would entertain a motion if so be it.
I'll move to approve.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? We have a second. Wait, who seconded? That was kind of quick. So it's a combo, like we're teamwork. For the record. Any further clarity needed or any further questions? Seeing none. Oh wait, let me give a quick second. Mr. Chan, no questions? All right. As long as we got you happy, I think we're pretty good. All right, so all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that item carries. You guys are giving me a good time. I will report back to Alex about that. The next one's going to be item D, which is a notice of new administrators at registered and accredited law schools. It's attachment 0403, and this was a standard monthly minimal changes. Natalie, is there anything particular you wanted to highlight or anything glowing that we should share?
No, it's a standard report. What I would point out is that UDC Abraham Lincoln Law School, again, this month there were some plan changes, and this is in fact correct. They've had another change of registrar, but they believe that they have settled with this registrar for a period of time.
Awesome. That's a receive and file, or is that, so that requires a motion by the body? No, it's just informational purposes. The next is our discussion of 2018-19 educational standard goals. It's attachment 0404. And
similarly, no motion is needed here because these are the new goals that you adopted last month in light of the changes related to Appendix I.
Would this be appropriate?
I just want to note that we're going to, we want a motion to accept the goals. At the last meeting, if you look at the minutes, we were inconsistent. So just for the purpose of consistency, we've done this for the past subgroup. So I think we just need to continue with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we get to that motion, so as you mentioned, the goals have not changed, but one of our goals was the implementing the avenues of engagement with law schools. So that's the law school assembly. So this might be the opportunity. There were some comments earlier that kind of deferred back to the law school assembly. So is it appropriate for, or would you be willing to share?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Information?
Sure. You know, I apologize. I should have given more detail as to the law school assembly earlier because several topics were immediately raised in discussion here. So at the law school assembly, there'll be a number of focus areas, and we're bringing in guest speakers, those that are involved in creating the studies or helping the bar to design the strategy on almost every one. So just quickly, those bases of interest are, first of all, moral character and the role of rehabilitation. And we'll be bringing in Debbie Makamal from the Stanford Center on Criminal Justice. We'll be giving an update on the bar studies, and I think what will be of great interest to the schools there is that this will be provided not only from staff and study designers, but also from the deans involved in the CAPA team, including Dean Stephen Ferrulo from the University of San Diego, Dean Emily Scriboletto from UCLA will be giving comment, though she's not available to attend that day, and Dean Jackie Gardino, who's here today. And if you have any questions of the dean, she may be able to share. We think that the schools will be very interested to hear specifically from the perspective of the deans, and that's something we haven't been able to bring to them before. In addition, we'll be bringing the Access and Inclusion group to come and talk about and brainstorm programs to improve retention of diverse law students, a further deep dive into the Justice Gap study mentioned by Leah, focusing on areas of interest to law schools, how we can involve law school students and law schools in focus groups and surveys, as well as to learn about the LRAP programs that they offer at this time. We'll also be telling them about state bar updates in the area of AIMS, in the area of online proctoring, as Tammy discussed today, and potential changes, consolidation, or elimination of bar exam sites in the future. So we think that the schools will be very interested and also be able to provide valuable feedback back to the state bar. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Really quickly, we do show that the Law School Council and CS bars have taken place. There is the e-newsletter, so do you have any update on that?
The e-newsletter is temporarily on hold pending the other initiatives, so the others will be pursued first, and then we will turn back to the e-newsletter later in the year.
Okay, and then I do sit on the CS bars, so there is, we did adopt the rules for the online JD programs, so that's currently in motion. Is there a date of when either the bar will see it, or what is the whole timeline for that?
The next step, after receiving the feedback that we got this past week from CS Bars, is to bring the rules back to the Board of Trustees so they can see them standing alone. And we believe that they will give the authority to put those rules into place very shortly thereafter.
Awesome. Any questions on the goals? All right, seeing none, I just wanted to really quickly thank the deans and thank everyone who's participating in this process. I know we've been running pretty fast, but your flexibility, understanding, and ability to accommodate these needs has been very helpful, and we wholeheartedly appreciate that in the whole process. So thank you very much for doing that. I want to thank the committee members that went on the inspections. It's very eye-opening. For me, it was like drinking from a fire hose. Heather Georgiakis used to be a dean. Dean Frickberg is a dean, and so their abundance of knowledge was just an abundance, and I really appreciated having that opportunity to meet with that different type of knowledge level. But seeing nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adopt our goals. All right, that's Robbie. So we have a motion. Is there a second? I heard a second. Okay. Any further questions or clarity needed? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you for being patient with me, and I really appreciate it. That is all for me, Mr. Chair.
The next item on our agenda is discussion of moral character goals. Jim?
Yes. So if you look at it's 0500, the first entry is confer with the subcommittee on moral character regarding procedures for transferring responsibility of conducting informal conferences. That's probably going to have kicked over for a month or two because we've just created the working committee. The presentation of findings of the committee is probably going to be kicked over a couple of months because, again, we're just getting started. I think we're still working on trying to get some kind of presentation regarding the dynamics of sexual assault and survivor responses for August. Hopefully we'll be able to get something done this fall in that area. And the presentation of implication of bias, or implicit bias, which is something I guess I'm really interested in as well as everyone else, hopefully in the fall. And then we're ongoing doing training, and for right now we're still doing moral character informal conferences. So I guess we'll probably report back in June where we are, but I guess I would suggest we just do a motion to approve the goals as presented, understanding that things are being kicked off a couple of months.
So moved. Brody?
Moved. Second.
Second. Okay, moved in second. Any comment? All in favor?
One
sorry, yes.
quick comment.
Sure.
On number 4, the received presentation on implicit bias, or CEBE members. Can that be reworded so it doesn't sound as though it's only CBE members that may have implicit bias? That's everyone.
I don't have any.
Because you don't have to, well, how about just dropping for CBE members? Receive presentation on implicit bias.
Or how about receive presentation to CEB members on implied bias,
Okay.
implicit bias? So can we move CEB members to this side of that sentence? Okay. Any comments or questions or discussions on that revision? Okay. Mr. Brody, is that acceptable to you?
I'll make the motion to approve with that modification.
And we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Thank you, Dolores. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's done with my open session.
Thank you very much. And actually, believe it or not, that concludes our open session. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and go into closed session.
How are you doing?
Interesting. You started to put this front page around everything.
Bagley Kimbo that you're supposed to.
So, I guess for a while we didn't really do it. Right.
No.
Sure.
Keep us out of trouble.
Is it okay? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to conclude our public session and we're going into closed session.
And are we not using the mics in closed session?
No, we will be able to use the mics in closed session once the web camera is shut off. Okay. Tom was just saying that there is a new application that they can mute it. Even if we were to go in and out of closed session, we would be able to use the mics now.